So, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, everything is set and we are ready to start our first panel discussion. Its theme, Defense Industry in Wartime, Partner Perspectives. And I'd like to invite to the stage the moderator of this panel, Yuliya Osmolovska, Director of GLOBSEC, Ukraine. Please welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, шановна аудиторія, для мене велика честь бути тут.
It's a great pleasure for me to be here and moderate this discussion. We are partners with the Ministry of Strategic Enterprise, and I'm very happy that we have a continuous partnership. And with your agreement, and with respect to all our speakers, I will switch to English language.
Right now, out of respect to our speakers and to invite them to the stage. So the first will be Thierry Carlier, Deputy Head of General Directorate for Armaments, the Ministry of the Armed Forces of the French Republic. Hello. Take your seat. Then we have Thor, Vidar, Indreeide, Deputy National Armaments Director, Royal Norwegian Minister of Defense. Hello, welcome. Take your seat. Next one, Andis, Dilans, Undersecretary of State for Logistics, the Minister of Defense of the Republic of Latvia. Andis, CEO, Defense Equipment and Support at National Armaments Director, Minister of Defense of United Kingdom. And last but not least, Brigadier General Kipling Kahler, US Senior Official, Defense Attaché of the US Embassy. Take your seat. Thank you. So, in 5 months' time, we will enter into the 4th year of this war. When the war started in February 2022, probably nobody expected that it would last as long as it's already lasting. And definitely we could say that right now the war entered its phase of the war of attrition. And this is something that GLOBSEC experts predicted in our security scenarios we published in December 2023, where 42 Ukrainian military and defense experts graded different scenarios, and the scenario of the war of attrition, which might go even beyond 2025, came first. The second conclusion of this work that we did was that the next phase of the war will definitely be a technological phase. So it will be a competition of technologies, and actually technological supremacy will define the winner in this war. So basically, these conclusions give us 2 fundamental questions that we would like to discuss on this panel. The first one is, have the industries, your countries, your experience and engagement in Ukraine within these 2.5 years convinced you that you should ramp up the production, and how this process actually is happening? And second, are we ready for this technological challenge? Are we ready for this technological phase of war? And what we do together, what should we do together in order to win this war together? So let me start with the question to Thierry Carlier. How has the French defense industry responded to this prolonged war? Your president last year at our GLOBSEC Security Forum defined it's already that it's going to be a war of attrition. So how the industry reacted to this? What are the main trends right now?
Thank you very much for the question. And first of all, good morning to all. It's an honor to be here and to share with you how we ramp up with the industry question, and of course how we can support Ukraine to victory, and of course to do all our efforts to this regard. So when it comes to your question, so actually in France since the beginning of the war, almost at the same time, there were the announcement, as you mentioned, by our president that we should enter in this war economy. So at the beginning, we tried to develop, let's say, a toolbox on how we should ramp up with the industry. At the same time, we had to set a political framework, which we call in France the military programming law, which covers the years 24 to 30, but it entered into force in July 23. So we also took this opportunity in order to develop with our industry this kind of toolbox. So it means that we, let's say, pushed with our industry in order to increase production, to reduce equipment time, and also to ensure security of supply, because we even discovered before, for instance, with the COVID crisis, that we did have some bottlenecks within our supply chain that we wanted to resume and to overcome. So within the military programming law, for the first time, we did put a legal framework in order to ensure that our industries, our big companies, they were building adequate stockpiles for strategic components, for raw materials, so indeed everything which is on the critical path in order to produce critical war equipment. At the same time, and this also does address the supply chain, we put in place within the law, in fact, a prioritization system that enables for defense priority let's say, to be given within a dual-use supply chain the possibility to have a prioritization towards civil production. So all of this mechanism now, they have been put into force. So we have taken some decrees in order, let's say, to have the first stockpiles which have been, let's say, dedicated within the different big companies. So everything is in place now. And in the meantime, we have also, let's say, done some dedicated efforts, being very, of course, demanding. And our French companies here in the room today, they perfectly know that. And we did these efforts together with them. So just in order to take some examples, so we know that when it comes to the Caesar famous howitzer here in Ukraine, we have managed to increase the production rate by 3 times when we compare which was the case before the war, while also reducing the production time by more than 2. You also know that we have some, and it's the case for all countries, some bottlenecks when it comes to ammunition 155 production. So this takes time, but we have put also, we have developed a brand new propulsive powder factory, which did not exist in France beforehand, and this is going to open next year, and this is of course going to be a huge progress. In the same spirit, when it comes to aviation guided bombs, which we also provide to Ukraine in big quantities, so what we call the A2SM Hammer, we have also increased drastically our orders and improved the production time. And of course, most of this production nowadays goes and will go to Ukraine. And even for, let's say, other very critical equipments, so when it comes, for instance, to for missile production, for VSHORAD or medium-range air missile defense, we are also connecting dedicated efforts nowadays, and especially also with our UK colleagues, in order to drastically shorten our production time and to increase production of this complex equipment. So this is definitely what we are doing. So all of these efforts, they are taking place at the same time. They are already quite successful. So it means that we are working at the same time on technical, legal, and defense policy aspects on what is currently a key issue for Europe currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will then do another round of questions when it comes to more of cooperation with Ukraine, but this time I'd like to have this like broad sketching of where you are internally with these challenges that Russian full-scale invasion into Ukraine actually exposed to you. So the next question would be to Mr. Indreeide. In the security agreement that Norway has signed with Ukraine, there is very interesting reference. Like Norway has modified its policy in order to enable enhanced cooperation in defense industry and to enable direct sales of military equipment to Ukraine. So the question might be how this war has actually modified the defense industrial policy of Norway.
First, thank you for inviting me to this panel, and very good morning to all the attendees. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the question. To which the answer is that the war in Ukraine has fundamentally changed the export policy of Norway to such a degree that it has never been that much altered since 1959, actually. In 1959, it was worked into the legal basis for the export control management that Norwegian industry would not be allowed to export to countries at war, with a civil war or at risk of war. This changed, as you alluded to, last year, at the end of last year, and it has really led to, I would say, an opening of new opportunities, new possibilities, new dialogues between our industries in the first place. But it also allows the government to provide other types of support to Ukraine than previously done, as we all have done, all nations here represented, I suppose, at the panel and in the audience. In the first phase of the war, our support was given in the form of donations from our stocks. That has gradually come to a halt, and we now need to look more to industry for continuing the support, both our own industry, allied industries, and not least Ukrainian industries. And that's what we want to see more of from the Norwegian government side, collaboration with Ukrainian industry. I suppose that will be for the next round of questions, but I would like to come back to that later. But thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Dilans, Latvia is known as a country which doesn't have a big scaled defense industry. On the other hand, your country has been very active in promoting and engaging in this cooperation within the EU frameworks and within the NATO frameworks. And your country was one of the first ones that actually signed the memorandum in support to the Czech initiative to provide with more ammunition to Ukraine. Your country is also a very active member of the drones coalition. So how would you assess this international component of cooperation of European countries when the war started in your support to Ukraine?
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Доброго ранку. Slava Ukraini. Latvia, of course, is a small country, but with a big heart, and with a heart in the right side of the body. As our independence also, after the collapse of Soviet Union started in '91, we based our military establishment and development on the international cooperation with other partners and countries from Scandinavia, from Western Europe, and also the North America. And that's we are already 20 years as a NATO members, and let's put this up front. All the wars, the major wars, starting from Peloponnesian Wars, are won by economy and technology development. And that you rightly stated, this is about the technology superiority. Sure, we are kind of small. I'm not saying the small country. And we were not having a big defense industry till 2014. But since we clearly understood that, and we are sharing the same threat and same problems like Ukraine does, and we are on the eastern flank of NATO and European Union, we have to do more ourselves. You know, Ukraine is also running for a NATO membership. And everyone knows the NATO Article 5, which talks about the attack on one country is attack on everyone. For my country, it took a decade to understand there are other paragraphs or articles in a NATO treaty, like Article 3, which talks about the self-defense. And we clearly understood that only after the Crimea annexation. And since then, our investments in the defense budget went up skyrocketing speed. And today, as we speak, our defense budget for this year is 3.14 of GDP. Next year, it's even more from GDP. And that shows clearly, if you have a volume and you have a money, you can do something. Now, in relation to Ukraine, our government has made a very clear decision. 0.25% of our GDP will go to Ukraine. For us, for me, as a military. Thank you. For us, for the military, this is 10% of a defense budget. 10% of the budget, of course, might be for the US, it sounds small money, the 110 to 115 million euros annually, but that's also the money what we are giving to Ukraine, sharing the problem and not having the investment in our defense capabilities. But regarding the local industry, I have to mention that the way ahead, as we realized in the first few months after the Russia's invasion, full-scale invasion into Ukraine, that our stocks are depleted, and we have no plans nor ideas how to replenish. And those who want to replenish the stocks, they have to queue it up for the industry to make the orders. And that is going to be a lengthy time for other countries, not only mine, to replenish the stocks by ourselves and also to help to Ukraine. We have to really find the better solutions. And as our stocks are depleted, we are now looking at the production of the munition and also the APCs and other hardware in our country. And the best way to incorporate the Ukraine's knowledge and experience from the war is to have a joint venture and a joint cooperation between the industries. And we're looking also from government to government and industry to industry. And the last not least, but Latvia is an establishment of the state-owned defense cooperation, which will run on behalf of the state and will lead the cooperation between the industries and the governments. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. To start, so this summer the government has changed in United Kingdom, but what was very encouraging for us to follow that the policy when it comes to support to Ukraine has remained unchanged. And definitely all these initiatives that had been announced before, like developing this UK export facility with the emphasis on localization, on more production in Ukraine, and so on. But if you can answer, what we might expect else, what might be different with the new government on top of these initiatives that already been announced?
Well, thank you for the question. I'm very conscious that we have our Minister for the Armed Forces sitting in the front row who is able to speak for the government. So in a minute, I might pass him the microphone and just see if he wants to add anything to what I might say. Let me answer as National Armaments Director, and then I'll ask the Minister to maybe add the government's policy position over the top. Firstly, just to acknowledge and recognise how incredible the bravery, efforts and support of the whole of the Ukrainian nation has been in fighting this conflict, which is a fight not only for Ukraine, but for our underlying value, rule of law, for the sovereignty of nations. So it is important to all of our countries that Ukraine is successful, and that's why we need to lean in. Both the previous administration in the UK and the current administration in the UK absolutely recognise that. And that's why collectively, so far, they have invested over £7 billion worth of hard cash into supporting the Ukraine effort. They've made the most enormous scale of gifting in kind. We've delivered over 40 million items of inventory in support of the Ukrainian effort since the full-scale invasion. And therefore, the efforts of leaning in has been absolutely enormous. The expectation going forward is that that will continue and continue to scale up. But we are not only doing more in terms of the activities with UK industry, and we have very significantly increased the capacity of UK industry to provide munitions and provide complex weapons and provide more advanced technology that we might speak to in a moment. But we have absolutely recognized that this is a shared mission with Ukrainian industry. And through Project Hurst, which you'll hear General Anna Lee Riley speak about later on, we're working collaboratively with Ukrainian industry using UK's access to export finance to ramp up the scale of activity we're doing even further with an additional £3 billion worth of investment collaboratively with Ukrainian industry. That is not only militarily necessary, but it is highly operationally desirable. What our industry learns from partnering with Ukrainian industry in country is real-time operational feedback from the theatre. The pace of innovation is astounding, and that's allowing our industry to work with Ukrainian industry to deliver better capabilities. I'll stop there, but I will ask the Minister if he'd like to foot stomp or add any additional points. Minister, would you just like to grab the mic?
It's always nice when he gets noticed, isn't it? Andy said exactly what the right words. With the new government in Britain, there will be no change in our policy for Ukraine. We will support Ukraine until you win. It's really important we spell that, and those words are important. But very briefly, how we get there, the gifting journey that the UK and most of our allies have gone on is now nearing completion. There's little left to be gifted, so we need to move to an accelerated trade relationship. That needs to be one where there's work share in Ukraine as well as work share in countries. We need to speed up the spiral development, and we need to do this at pace because the Russians are innovating at pace as well. And so that needs to be a collaborative relationship, and one that will continue to deepen. And as a new government, we intend to continue the work that our allies and ourselves have been doing and deepen that relationship, deliver more, faster, and be more innovative. And we're going to continue getting there. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm sincerely hoping that wasn't career limiting, asking the Minister to speak without notice. So fingers crossed you forgive me for that, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your courage. So, Brigadier General Kahler, I definitely won't be asking you how the policy of the US will change after election and what new initiatives to expect. As I promised not to put very harsh question at the panel, but what I would like to ask actually, again, getting to the security agreement, security cooperation agreement that your country has signed with Ukraine, there is a reference that there is an emphasis on joint research and development and innovative industries, like in many agreements that we have, but also that defense industry will be developed on the basis of existing agreements. So naturally the question comes, what agreements are being elaborated now, or what new areas are you looking at on top of this to upgrade this normative and regulatory base that we have between the two countries?
Excellent question. Next question.
Can we switch again to US election and prediction what will happen?
No, I'm glad my wife is not here today. She's a great woman. She only has two fears, the fear of God and the fear of me public speaking. So the joint research and development is a key element of our agreements with Ukraine. And as Andy had mentioned, you know, the innovation that is happening on the battle space at this time is incredible. And the Russians are innovating as fast as they can, and we as partners are attempting to do the same thing. But we don't want to work across purposes. This is why in the UDCG, or the Ukraine Defense Cooperation Group, we work with committees to make sure that we are working collaboratively on all aspects. So you have many bilateral agreements, but these bilateral agreements should not detract from other good work, great work, and cooperation in order to provide Ukraine the best weapon systems at scale. And I repeat, at scale. Organically produced. They may have components from overseas, but those overseas components need to be done at scale and quickly to provide Ukraine with the weapon systems that they need by priority at the speed of war. And so we want to focus more on the collaborative efforts and that U.S. defense contractors, U.S. defense industries are able to come here and work, for example, under the Ukraine Defense Initiative, to collaboratively work and cooperate and co-produce many of these weapons systems in working with our colleagues, many of whom are here, BAE Systems and others, to work together for that in order to provide you what you need.
Thank you. So it's actually it's very logical finishing of the first round of questions. We are like naturally dwelling into the bilateral track and what we can do together with Ukraine. And here I can put just probably one broad question to all of you, but with a couple of components, so you can just decide what you would like to specify in it. When it comes to the cooperation with Ukraine, or like natural critical thinking always implies to consider what could be done better what could be done differently in order to achieve better results. So you already have got some experience of working with Ukraine. These security agreements that I mentioned, most of them contain all these different levels of cooperation. The agreement with France, for instance, is very rich on positions like industrial partnerships, different type of joint ventures, other forms of investment, facilitating investment into defense industries in Ukraine. So the first element of the question would be, what forms of you know your companies, you know your business, what forms might be preferable or you're looking at to develop as a partnership in Ukraine? Then next question might be, what you can identify as not a stumbling blocks, but something that could be improved in the next 6 months. So let us not talk about the corruption phantom, because it does exist, but actually we would like to see where we can practically move somewhere. So let's pretend it doesn't exist at all in nature, in the world. So what we can do practically in the next 6 months, because the government of Ukraine just 1 year ago at the first summit of defense industry called upon the partners to build the military arsenal of the free world together. So let's come up with some kind of practical recommendations that we can take as a to-do list for the next 6 months. Thank you. In the same order.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very practical question. We of course all have to answer. So you raise, of course, the key question of industry partnership. From French perspective, we definitely see that as what we have to achieve now, what is ahead of us, because what we have tried from the beginning of the war, and of course what we will continue to do, is to support Ukraine with global consistent military capabilities. So it's not, let's say, one-shot equipment that we try to give. It's not always a matter of quantity, but it's also a matter of providing game changers, capabilities, military capabilities, which can make the difference on the battlefield. So this is definitely the perspective, the regard in which France tried to develop its support to Ukraine. So this is what we are, of course, going to continue to support. And now, of course, the step is how can we jointly support these capabilities in the long run? And for this, of course, industrial partnership, they are key, especially for maintenance and further developing the capabilities which have been provided here. So it means that our joint ventures, the link between Ukrainian and French defense companies, they are key in order to improve these equipments, to continuously adapt them to modern warfare, of course taking into account the return of experience on the battlefield. So what we have done is that we have put in place for some months now a steering board between the French MOD and the Ukrainian Ministry of Strategic Industries, but which of course also involves the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. And so we have dedicated meetings in order to review each time one dedicated partnership, what works, what needs to be improved, and what is the roadmap we are developing. And I can testify that for my 2 days here in Kyiv, in Ukraine, we have very concrete examples on, of course, how we have to develop these GVs. They need to be given some visibility in order, let's say, to organize their work. For instance, we are trying to find out very concrete measures in order to see, for instance, for the equipment which have been transferred from France to Ukraine, let's say how the data, the intellectual property, the original design of this equipment, how this can be delivered in order for the Ukrainian companies to develop the maintenance, to have the access to manufacture their own spare parts. So this is definitely what we have developed during my 2 days here. And now we definitely have to focus on the maintenance of this equipment. So this means, among others, armored vehicles, the Vidar howitzers I was mentioning before, the radars. And so we definitely think that these GVs, these industrial partnerships, they need to be given the proper tools in order to develop their activity. Perhaps also a very practical path in order to make some progress is how we, let's say French companies, but of course not the only ones, how we can provide Ukrainian industry and the Ukrainian defense technological industrial base with high value, cutting edge technology components, because I understand also from the talks I had here during these 2 days that these are key in order for the Ukrainian industry to improve their capacities and to further develop their equipments. So these key components, they can be, for instance, inertial navigation systems, laser designators, infrared sensors. So all these kind of technologies which are badly needed in order to increase the capabilities. Also, and I'm going to stop here, something that we do not have to forget is that we have to be quick, much more quicker as we were in the past. So it means that we also have to levy to overcome some administrative showstoppers. So we know that it's about export license, it's about also transporting the equipments, so really to leverage in order to overcome all the procedural issues that we can still have, and we know that they still consume a huge deal of time and efforts, so it's also something that we have to continue to overcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm in full agreement with the many points made by my French colleague, but I would like to add that whilst high-end technologies remain important, the war has shown us the criticality of mass. Hence, I believe that the West needs to step up its support to Ukraine's industry to tap the production potential of the huge production potential of this industry. Ukraine's defense industry, we have heard, can produce more, but need more funding from partner nations to do so. Furthermore, Ukraine's defense industrial base should be strengthened and further developed through cooperation with partner industries abroad. This could entail technology transfer, co-development, including test and evaluation, repair and maintenance and upgrades of donated equipment, and rapid development and fielding of potentially high volume, low cost solutions. I think I will better leave it to industry to define the forms of cooperation, but I think this could be the content. This could be part of the content of it. As mentioned by Andy and others, Ukraine's ability to innovate and adapt is simply astonishing. Whilst the West, we must admit, has become complacent and slow during the post-Cold War era. So I believe we have an opportunity now to learn from Ukraine's experience in becoming more agile. This goes both for governments, militaries, and industries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with saying that the chance for the long-lasting peace and the reconstruction will be decided on the battlefield at first. Therefore, the equipping of Ukrainian forces with the necessary means and military capabilities is at utmost important. And we have to continue as from the West to deliver the weapons and not and keeping our promises what we have promised. And as Ukrainian forces also struggles with the opportunity and possibilities to strike the targets on Russian territory, the all caveats for this conditions should be removed from the countries delivering the weapons. If you are giving something, then as a military officer, I would like to use it when I need to use it, not to wait when I'm in trouble and then it's far too late to do something about. Now in very short words, in summing up, less words, more deeds for everyone. We have bureaucratical hurdles on both sides, in our national sides, political, industrial, and also on Ukrainian sides. Those should be kind of also eliminated, if not removed at all. For the delivery of weapons and systems like Latvia is delivering the drones within the drone coalition, we also face the issues like having the hub where it's delivered. It's a bit a lengthy time to get them to the front line, especially to FPV drones, for instance. When we deliver them properly, they are not in use anymore, needed, or there is already anti-UAV systems which are not letting to use those UAVs properly. Therefore, the time of delivery from the time of production should be kind of followed and reduced as much as possible. Innovations and adoptions, colleagues already mentioned. Experience from the war in Ukraine should be used by industry and should be used quickly and adaptively. The best and way and fastest way to introduce is to be introduced within the industry here on soil, on Ukrainian soil. Therefore, I'm repeating myself, the joint venture, joint cooperation between the private to private industries is also utmost important. Last not least, I know Ukrainian side is always talking to give it as money and we will produce it, but we have to have it really the transparent cash flow or funds transfer system in order to proceed this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, I agree with everything that Thierry, Thor, and Andis have said. A few things to add. Firstly, you asked what we could do better. I think we need to recognise the first thing we need to do better is do more of what's working well. There are a lot of things that are working really well. I'm really pleased with the bilateral arrangements and the speed and pace with which we've been able to execute. I'm delighted with the way the International Fund for Ukraine is performing. We've managed to co-fund with many nations, including those sitting up here, over £1 billion worth of additional funding, of which we've spent 750 million. The requirements for that fund continue, so please, if you have the opportunity for your nations to add more to that fund, please do. It's working really effectively. The other thing that's working really well is the UDC contact group for NADs, for National Armaments Directors. It's led by America, by Dr. Bilderplant, who I have to say, please pass on an enormous shout out for. He has galvanized the international community to operate as a collective in a way that is at a completely different pace to NATO is used to. That is teaching us something that we need to take into the NATO arena. That's really successful. We just need to keep that going, as well as the capability coalitions. And then a big shout out for our trade associations, our industry trade associations. For example, we have the UK ADS Trade Association here, who is facilitating relationships between UK industry and Ukrainian industry at incredible speed. I think we've had 4 trade delegations come out supported by the trade associations, and that's creating really exciting opportunities for our industries to support Ukrainian industries to increase production rates, do more in the supply chain and reduce bottlenecks, all of which is really important. So first message, double down on what's going well. What can be different and go better? Clearly more financing. Collectively, this is a collective effort to demonstrate that the international rule of law is important, and therefore we need to make sure that overall Ukraine has got as much funding or more than their adversaries. That's a joint effort. We need to help with that fundraising, and in addition we need to make financing easier. It has become, over the last 30 years, it has become traditional for the finance community to regard investing in defence companies as something that is not attractive, is not socially responsible. There is nothing more socially responsible than keeping our countries safe and secure. And we need to continue to work with our financial institutions to unlock that finance and make sure our companies have the cash flow that they need to be successful. As Thierry just talked about, also meeting with Ukrainian companies this week, the opportunity to support them in using our supply chains to help them scale more is very significant, and we need to keep working on that. And then the final big opportunity to do more, I think, is in using the logistics experience that we have learnt through the last 30 years and applying that to Ukraine. There is an enormous opportunity for industry to free up the Ukrainian armed forces in the rear by doing the logistics, the repairs and support for the Ukrainian government, and allow Ukrainian government to move their forces forward. The UK is doing a good job of that. We've got a number of companies here in country doing that support arrangements, and the frameworks that we have are open to other allies joining. So really encourage other allies here to work with my team to scale that support capability up, because that's freeing, that is not only giving more equipment and getting it back in the fight faster, but it is freeing up Ukrainian personnel into the fight, and that's incredibly important.
So, like he had mentioned, the financing is very, very important, and Ukraine needs to acquire this long-term investment, not just financing, but investment, because this is a very long-term struggle. It does not end when this war is relegated to the books in history, but this is going to continue to go on. As they'd mentioned, many arsenals are depleted, and not only are we going to have to do everything we can to help Ukraine win, but we're going to have to do everything we can to rebuild our own arsenals and our own stockpiles, because the world has more adversaries than just Russia. So how does Ukraine acquire long-term investment in order to get to scale? First thing, and this is basic finance, is you have to increase investor confidence by creating and maintaining a transparent defense industry here in Ukraine. And so the question is how do you do this? How do we go about this? And I have 4 suggestions. The first one is to ensure the strength and independence of word you're told us not to say, institutions. So the second one is to reinforce the independence of the judiciary. The third is to ensure SOE corporate governance is adhered to by OECD by principles. And the fourth is to ensure regulatory and supervisory boards are independent and selected in a way that maximizes the integrity and the professional experience of their members. So Ukraine has already made progress on some of these reforms, but more can and should be done. The U.S. is here to assist, as long as everyone else in this room and all the partners in Ramstein. So one of these notable reforms was the formation last year of the UDI Supervisory Board, which includes foreign defense experts. The board will assist in selecting the next person to lead UDI to evolve into a full-fledged joint stock company. Several U.S. defense companies have already signed contracts with UDI for co-production, such as Day & Zimmerman and Northrop Grumman, and we expect many more U.S. defense companies to join them.
Thank you very much. So we've ran out of time for the panel, but I think it's an excellent summary that you made, gentlemen, both when it comes to the lessons learned from the first 2.5 years of experience and matching these challenges of the war, but also some to-do list for the future. At least for the first 6 months, it's quite clear list what we have to do, and we will do this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the participants of this panel discussion. Thank you, Yuliya. Thank you for your insightful discussion. And of course, with no hesitation, we are proceeding to the next panel, dear friends. From partner perspectives in defense industry in wartime, we are moving to defense industry in wartime, results and challenges 2.5 years into the full-scale war. It's going to be our next panel discussion, just in a moment, without any breaks. So, ladies and gentlemen, and already have a pleasure to invite to the stage the moderator of this panel discussion. Please welcome Alexander Kamyshin, Advisor for Strategic Affairs to the President.